How does a man who has it all, fame, fortune, Grammys, and a Hollywood love story, still spend years wrestling with demons that nearly destroyed him? Keith Urban is one of the biggest names in country music, a superstar with a flawless smile and a career most people only dream of. But behind the spotlight is a story you won't see on stage. A story of fire, fists, addiction, and the kind of heartbreak that could have ended everything, if not for one woman who refused to let him fall. On the outside, Keith Urban looked untouchable. 4 Grammy Awards, sold-out stadium tours, and a marriage to Nicole Kidman, one of Hollywood's most glamorous stars. He wasn't just a musician, he was a brand, a living legend, the kind of guy who seemed to have cracked life's code. But here's the thing, perfection is often a mask. The truth is, Keith's life was never as shiny as the headline suggested. What the cameras didn't see was a man haunted by the ghosts of his past, carrying scars he never asked for. And to understand how Keith Urban got here, you've got to go back, way back, to the beginning.
Keith Lionel Urban was born on October 26, 1967 in Whangarei, New Zealand. He didn't grow up in red carpets and recording studios. He grew up in chaos. His parents moved the family to Queensland, Australia, hoping for a better life. But instead, tragedy hit fast. When Keith was just 9, his family's home burned to the ground. Everything, photos, toys, clothes, memories, gone in flames. They were left with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Keith would later say, "All we had left was each other and the kindness of neighbors who showed up with boxes of clothes." But the real fire wasn't just outside. It was inside his own home. His father, Robert, was a man of 2 extremes, passionate about music, but volatile and violent when alcohol took over. Keith once admitted, "I don't remember him ever telling me he loved me." Imagine that, growing up desperate for love but finding only silence, anger, and fists. And yet, in the middle of all this, music appeared. His dad put a sign in the window looking for a guitar teacher, and that led Keith to Sue McCarthy, the woman who would become his first mentor. At 4 years old, he strummed a ukulele. At 6, he picked up a guitar like it was armor. For Keith, music wasn't just a hobby, it was survival. By the time most kids were learning multiplication, Keith was playing in smoky pubs, his parents chauffeuring him from one gig to the next. He won competitions, crushed it at Tamworth, and earned the coveted Golden Guitar Award. To the outside world, he was a prodigy, but behind every applause was a kid still trying to breathe. He once said, "Music saved me. It gave me somewhere to go when home didn't feel like home." That line tells you everything. His childhood wasn't just tough, it was devastating. But instead of breaking him, it forged him. Every scar turned into sound, every silence turned into rhythm. By the early 90s, Keith had a choice: stay in Australia and be a local star, or risk it all chasing the American dream. In 1992, he packed up everything and landed in Nashville. But let's be clear, this wasn't a movie montage where he's instantly discovered. Nashville didn't welcome him. The doors didn't just close, they slammed. He worked as a background guitarist, wrote songs for other people, and played empty bars. His band, The Ranch, fizzled out. At one point, he even wondered if he was cut out for music at all. But quitting wasn't an option. Music wasn't a dream anymore. It was his oxygen. Finally, in 1999, after 7 brutal years, he released his U.S. debut album. His single, "But for the Grace of God," shot to #1, and just like that, Keith Urban had arrived. But here's the twist. Success didn't silence his demons. It just put them under brighter lights. The 2000s were Keith's rocket ship. Somebody Like You became one of the biggest country hits of the decade. His album Be Here went triple platinum.
He collected Grammys, CMAs, AMAs like souvenirs. He wasn't just part of country music anymore. He was redefining it, fusing rock, pop, and country into something brand new. But fame is a paradox. You can be adored by millions and still feel completely alone. Behind the curtain, Keith was battling addiction, self-doubt, and the relentless pressure to be perfect. Every award was both a victory and a weight. Every sold-out show was another reminder of the emptiness he carried inside.
And then, Nicole Kidman. They met at a Hollywood gala in 2005, surrounded by flashing cameras and A-list stars. But for Keith, it was like the room faded, and only she remained. He waited 4 months before calling her, frozen by awe and insecurity. But once he did, everything changed. They married in June 2006 in what the world saw as a fairy tale. But 4 months later, the fairy tale cracked. Keith relapsed. For many couples, that would have been the end. But Nicole wasn't leaving. She staged an intervention, gathered close friends, and with compassion and fire, told Keith it was time to fight for his life. He checked in to the Betty Ford Center in October 2006. This time, something was different. He wasn't just doing it for himself, he was doing it for her. Keith later said, "I truly began living when I married her." Recovery gave him clarity. Clarity gave him purpose. And purpose led to transformation. In 2008, Keith and Nicole welcomed their first daughter, Sunday Rose. 2 years later came Faith Margaret. Fatherhood grounded him in ways fame never could. It was no longer about escaping pain with music or substances. It was about showing up, being present, and becoming the father his own never was. Nicole didn't save him. She stood in the fire with him until he found the strength to walk out himself. That's what love really looks like.
Fast forward to now. Keith is nearly 60 and living a life of peace he never thought possible. He and Nicole share a combined net worth of over $250 million, with homes in Nashville, Sydney, New York, and a countryside estate in Australia. But what's striking is how grounded he remains. He still writes, still tours, still mentors young artists. In 2024, he released High, an album full of introspection and emotional depth. He meditates, paints, journals, and practices gratitude daily. And most importantly, he's sober, completely. Keith Urban isn't just a survivor. He's proof that scars don't have to define you. They can shape you into something stronger. Keith Urban's story isn't about being a superstar. It's about resilience, about falling, breaking, and somehow finding the courage to rebuild. From house fire as a boy, to addiction as a man, to redemption through love and fatherhood, his life is the kind of story that makes you believe healing is possible. So if this journey moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share, because Keith Urban's story isn't just about music. It's about what it means to overcome and to finally find peace.